All right, Ariel, well, cheers. Welcome back to Pints with Ayre. We got some really cool special seasonal brews today that I'm about to crack, and thank you for this. But yeah, got a special German Pilsner from your German themed Advent calendar. You want to fill us in on what we're drinking today?
Oh yeah. So my wife this year found a beer advent calendar. I forget where, but so I'm my family and I have been doing a beer advent calendar for me for many years now. We actually made our own originally, and I would go to liquor store with the family, and we'd all pick out kind of wild random beers. And anyway, so this year she found one. I think it was at Costco, and it's this brewer's advent calendar, and these are all kind of small German breweries. And I don't know much about it. There's a whole app you can download. I haven't done that. My wife downloaded the app. She's been looking at the various beers in it. So I think that they're all unique, 24 different beers. And we're in day 7 now, and the first 5 have been absolutely delicious. They've all been some Weiss beers, or some, all been fantastic.
Yeah, which one do you have tonight?
I have a Martzen. I can't quite decipher the name. There are now Martzen Beer, Ursel, private brewery. Yeah, the font used is kind of so I can't quite tell this, but it's a Martzen, which are usually nice and golden and rich, really malty. Big fan of nice Martzen. One of the local breweries, Garf. I wonder if we did it in one of our previous episodes. They did a special seasonal brew one year, and they imported all actual German ingredients. And then they brewed it locally here in right over in Gun Barrel, and it was amazing. It was a really good one. Although it was better fresh. I had some a few months later, kind of leftover stock, and it had not aged as well. Anyway,
all right.
Advent beer calendars. I'm a big fan, and it's fun.
It is fun. Yeah, I got a little bit of a different flavor here. I got a Pilsner from the Advent calendar, and this one's really good. It's got like hints of honey in it. It's just got this real nice kind of honey kind of sweetness to it. But,
yeah.
Oh man, yeah, real nice and light. Really
yeah.
Good.
Yeah. The thing that the kind of almost the common thread I found so far is that in all these beers so far, at least compared to the local beers I'm used to, there's almost a bit more of a sweetness to all of these German beers so far. Especially the first day, which I don't have that in front of me. It was one of the first things I noticed. Oh, it's awfully sweet, but not in a bad way. It really was part of the overall profile.
Yeah, I can definitely taste some sweet hints of honey in this one, but I guess the brewery is Uberquell, and Bamboul is, I won't work. Yeah, Bamboul is the drink. Well, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing your Christmas present with me.
Yep.
Well, I am I've been wanting to kind of geek out and get kind of techie again on some stuff. I know that this year we've tried to catch a lot of our old and new airheads up on like a lot of our product history and kind of some of the development chronology that we've gone through over the years, and we've kind of taken a step back from getting into some of more of the techie stuff maybe, but I thought it'd be kind of cool to talk about just wiring configurations, kind of traditional versus by wire versus potentially by amping a system. I don't think we've done a deep dive kind of on this in previous episodes, so
I don't think so. Yeah.
there's definitely some pretty cool benefits to be had from any of those. There's pros and cons to all of them, of course, but yeah, all of them can kind of yield some pretty unique results depending on what you're trying to achieve with your system. So yeah, thought it would be kind of fun to talk about this. And all of our products kind of offer quite a variety of ways to set up your system. I mean, throughout the product line, there's quite a few different input and output options that our products have, and it'd be kind of cool to kind of go over how people can make best use of those. It's like, why does this amp have 2 binding posts per channel? Well, this is a good conversation to have for that.
Right.
So yeah, I guess this would be kind of more of a traditional wiring method here. It looks like we're going like straight out of an amplifier, straight to some speakers, left and right, positive, negative, and we've got these 2 little jumpers from positive and negative here.
Yeah, which is pretty common. Most, I'd say probably a majority of high-end speakers have, they have multiple binding posts, and they come stock with that jumper, so that you can connect just a single speaker cable from a single amplifier output and drive the full range of that speaker.
And then as that, you know, as you connect a singular pair to the binding post, the you know, the jumper itself is what's carrying the signal either from the mids and highs to the bass, or the bass to the mids and highs, right? Or is there another network inside that would split that up? Or like, I guess, I'm sorry, the 2 binding posts that are exposed are going to carry that signal to those separate pathways, correct?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, and then that so then that external jumper then basically yields that as one external connection, so it doesn't see any difference then.
Yeah. So, and then some speakers like our Legato Duos, these Sonor audio speakers here that have a singular binding post here. So there must be some sort of jumper internal to that then, right? That'll just carry that signal to that highs and mids network.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, exactly right. Right. So on the speakers that then do have multiple inputs, and where you can then remove that jumper, is that then you can connect, so the first step would be to first kind of upgrade path, you could call it, would be to then by wire. So you can run 2 sets of speaker wires to each speaker. And so you're either doubling up on the binding posts at the amp, or if your amp like the VX5 has 2 sets of binding posts, you can connect them directly. And so the benefit, the theory behind this and the benefit is that when you're trying to drive with the highs and the lows, that you have different frequencies in effect, and so you're trying to separate the impedance driving those different frequencies. And so now the amplifier is still producing the voltage of the full musical range. There's no filters at this point in front of the amp, and so the amp is still going to be producing the voltage of all these frequencies. But because of the crossover network at the individual speaker, differentiation for the high frequency crossover network and the low frequency crossover network, it is going to be filtering out some of those voltages, and therefore not drawing any current at those frequencies. And so when you just have one speaker cable, again, there's all those different frequencies, and the current supplying them are shared on the one bundle of conductors. And so in theory, there can be some basically intermodulation distortion generated that because that you're trying to do all those things at once. And so the theory behind the bi-wiring is separating that. So you were reducing some of that intermodulation distortion, kind of isolating the impedance of each path. And so again, that's really more the current domain, because that voltage domain, like the amplifier is still generating all that, but again, it's only closing the circuit. It only has a path for current to flow in the actually used frequencies and the levels that is actually not filtered by that crossover network at the speaker.
Yeah.
So it's awkward to try and explain, but that's the gist of it.
Yeah, and so that's by wiring from the amplifier to the speaker. And you know, when this is probably just a good question for me to know in general too, but you know, when we're talking speaker cable and power cable, you're dealing with quite a bit more voltage than what like an interconnect, like a RCA or an XLR might. So do you think that it would be pretty paramount or important for the length of cable to be the same when you're doing a bi-wire kind of setup, or do you think that that might not matter as much?
I mean, I think ideally, yes, you would have them matched. There are a lot of variables there, you know, like I mean, if you're talking about the actual phase alignment of the speaker, like, and it's just best to keep them the same. So any kind of you know, again, kind of travel time from the amplifier to the speaker I mean, as matched, and we're talking, you know, virtually the speed of light transmission, so it's probably negligible. But yeah, I would we've never played with altering lengths between high frequency and low frequency. We've always just matched lengths, and so
yeah,
something I've never experimented with. I don't want to. Don't need to go there.
yeah. Yeah, I just assume that that thicker gauge, the longer run, there's going to probably be a smidge more capacitance or just impedance in general that could kind of cause some potential phase and or time kind of related issues. So
yeah, and with some amplifiers, you know, you do there can be issues with certain cables and certain lengths as far as capacitive loading on the amplifier, and that's something that we've dealt with and managed over the years. We have so we have our own solutions inside the amplifier to be able to handle various capacitive loads. And so if you are then bi-wiring, you are essentially doubling the capacitance. So that's not normally an issue, but if you're using a particularly highly capacitive cable, which there are some out there, like the some of the flat profile ones, especially if they're next to each other, can be particularly capacitive. And so with some amplifiers, that can certainly be a problem. And so if you're doubling up on wiring, or triple, if you're tri-wiring, let's say, and you're then tripling the capacitance on that load.
yeah, it's pretty intense. I haven't ever seen anyone attempt really a tri-wired system. I've seen tri-amplified systems, but
right. So yes, again, so they you know, so the benefit is, you know, you're again kind of, you know, isolating those different frequencies and the cables are running on, so you're kind of isolating the impedance and reducing just, you know, very small level distortions potentially generated by the cable itself. The cost is, of course, extra cabling. You need to, you know, you're doubling your cost in speaker cables, which might be worth it in your system.
Yeah.
And then to take that the next step, beyond that is to then buy amp. It's not just by wire, to actually buy amp. So then you split your input signal, and then so you have separate paths for each the high and low frequency. Now again, assuming there's not some crossover in front of the amplifiers, each amplifier is still getting the full spectrum of frequency of right. So it's not like it's only amplifying the it's only passing low frequency or only passing high frequencies. So again, like this is, again, I think even more marginal gain here. What you do gain is then, you know, dedicated power to that one, you know, driver or that one low frequency section of the speaker. So you're gaining quite a bit more, you know, power drive, and more, so then more, you know, dedicated current drive, particularly for the low frequencies, let's say. Again, we haven't done that we haven't buy amp very often. So I don't have a lot of experience with it. We by default will buy wire here at the factory listening room. We almost always buy wire, and we definitely see that benefit. You know, going, you know, taking that next step to buy amping, you know, I think it's I don't think you see the same that's you don't get the same benefit as far as that the same intermodulation distortion kind of reducing those paths. In theory, I don't see that happening, but you do gain, again, just that power capability, that current drive capability dedicated to the frequencies.
Well, and in that respect too, I mean, if you've got an amp like we have here, we have this amp on top is ran straight to your highs, your mids and highs, and then this amp on the bottom here is ran straight to the lows. Those the power demand and the difference in those frequencies is can vary quite a bit, right? So base frequencies are more power hungry than mids and highs. So it's probably safe to say in like a bi-amped setup, an amp like an AB amp, for instance, connected to your mids and highs instead of the whole range, it might live in class A mode more often than not, right? Because there's not that big current demand on that particular amplifier. So you could have an MXR for your mids and highs, and it might never leave class A mode. And then you have your MXR and your lows, and then it's in that more efficient AB mode for that type of frequency range.
Yeah, potentially.
And then I guess the difference between the bi-amp setup, so you could either do like a, I guess technically this way would be a passive bi-amp setup because you're relying on the crossover built into the speaker.
Yes.
Whereas kind of like an active bi-amp setup, you would probably go out of your preamp into a crossover, an active line level crossover,
right,
and then send that off.
Yeah, and that has benefits to the amplifier, because again, then it really is not seeing the frequencies that it's not driving, and so it can focus well. It is just amplifying the frequencies that are going to be used. The drawback to see there is then you have added a very critical component to the system where that crossover upstream of the amplifiers is now another component, another connection, very critical of its quality. So I'm reluctant to go that far, personally. I think that just adds another another place to get things wrong. More connections.
in an active biamp setup, is that?
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so much can go wrong in the crossover to begin with. You add a whole other crossover in front of that,
Yeah.
there you could be asking for trouble. I can see
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and again, any of the active crossovers that I've seen, that they all use op amps. And so you're adding a whole nother stage of amp of basically high feedback op amp stages, and that's almost always bad.
Yeah, where's the trade-off? You're introducing kind of time and phase issues in trade of some frequency related issues.
Yeah.
In that regard. Yeah. Well, I like the idea of trying a biamp setup. I mean, there's so many different worlds to audio. We've got our wonderful world of hi-fi. There's the pro audio world. There's commercial and kind of distributed audio. And then there's the great world of car audio. And that's like a real common place to see, bi-amp or tri-amped kind of systems to take advantage of like to try to help the drivers operate their most efficient. You'll have a class D amp typically on the lows, so it doesn't pull from that alternator in the car battery when those low frequencies hit. You got an AB on the mids, and usually a class A on the highs if you're doing a high performance car audio setup. So it's that world can get pretty complicated with regards to how they try to cross over and wire everything up. Yeah, but there's definite advantages to that approach.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and so like it's like you mentioned before this video, in most of our preamps, we help facilitate biamping by having multiple outputs to make that easy. So like the KX5, KXR have two sets of balanced outputs. You only have one set of single-ended, but two sets of balanced outputs.
Yeah, super handy. Our KX8 is kind of to stay appropriate in the scaling of our products and our features and stuff. It has single-ended outputs. Yeah. But yeah, it's very uncommon for a preamplifier to have two simultaneously active balanced main outs. And to that degree, that's kind of a perfect segue to where I wanted to go next, because we've been talking like by amping and by wiring, but kind of at the end of the signal chain. We're kind of talking about it at like the speaker cable connection to the speakers, whereas now we can kind of take it a step back and kind of focus on the preamp side, because this is also going to have some similar you could kind of approach this in a similar way and really kind of fine tune the way that you're connecting this. Like one example that I'm thinking of in the back of my head here is there was a fella that I was chatting with in our emails recently that reached out, just kind of picking our brains about some technical setup questions. And he has a KXR and he's trying to implement some subwoofers and try to make that system a little more full range, augmenting the low end. And so he was trying to go out of he has a KXR. He was going out of the KXR with one set of the main outs to his subs, and then one set of the main outs to his power amp. But the tip that I gave him in this setup is since he was sending a dedicated run to the subwoofer, I just threw out the tip for him to try a set of silver cables, doing some silver for the outputs from the line output, not a speaker output, but the line output, having that output from the preamp be silver to the subwoofer. He replied back the next day like, hey, I took your advice and tried this and I was blown away, because it when you introduce silver in an analog interconnect for a full range signal transmission, it can sometimes push it to the brighter and maybe more harsh kind of side of things for a lot of people. But when you do it in a more focused manner on the low frequencies, it doesn't make those low frequencies that much brighter or darker like it would for your mids and your highs. And what you gain is like this body, this punch, this attack, this kind of definition. You get a little more like kind of pronounced fundamental of the note and not so much of the bass overtones. And it's just kind of a cool way to take advantage of that by wire capability. And by doing it with a line level cable, it's a little more forgiving than the speaker cables with changing the materials, changing the length of the cable. You know, you can kind of get away with a little bit more when you're doing it with the line level and balanced connection. And that tip goes the same for the unbalanced outputs. Like if you've got a main set go into your power amps and this unbalanced connection go into your subs,
Yep.
you know, you've got a 6 dB difference in volume right there inherently. And that silver in the unbalanced is going to add just a smidge of punch and just a tad bit more body to the signal without you having to use the amp and mess with your signal to noise ratio. It's just using silver in kind of this bi-wired setup specifically for bass is really, really cool. It's coming from a bass nerd here. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people, you know, they may have seen the 2 binding posts on the VX5, or they've seen the 2 outputs on the KX5 or the KXR, and you know, I don't think everyone has been as privy to the different ways that those can be used. You know, there's more than one way you can kind of utilize those.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think I have any more bi-wire questions at the moment, unless you've got any more knowledge you want to slap on me about it. But those are just kind of some of the fundamentals I think that we can kind of cover about those topics.
Yeah, no, that's it.
Yeah, well, I think coming soon, you might see some super epic bi-amplified R series rig at a trade show coming up here. I might have to do that.
That'd be fun. Yeah.
Yeah, well, this next year we'll have a lot of opportunities. This German beers got me thinking of Munich again. And we've got a lot of other shows that we're planning right now. So hopefully we'll get an opportunity to do that. But it's almost Christmas. We've got our advent calendar beer tonight, and I'm out of questions. So
Right. Well, I got to go home and pack. We're heading on a trip for the weekend.
you've got,
bike race weekend out of state. So
well, yeah, I mean, it's a pretty big race. It sounds like it's like a nationals race or something. What is
national championships? Yep. Yeah, my son is racing national championships this weekend. We've been going every December for the last several years. We go to national championships every year. He's done fairly well various years. So it's another big one. We're going to Louisville, Kentucky. Hopefully it'll be muddy. It's part of our, that's part of the love of this particular cycling sport. Cyclocross is the bad weather and the bad conditions just makes it that much better and funner.
Yeah, because you guys race mountain bikes and in dirt and harsh conditions and all that, right? It's not road bike racing you're doing.
This is cyclocross, yeah, which is different than mountain biking, different than road. It's a totally different sport. Yeah, so it's cyclocross, which is a more fall and winter sport. So you actually embrace the bad weather, the bad conditions.
Only the tough survive, right?
Right, exactly right.
Awesome. Well, everyone, let's wish young Brown some luck at this championship tomorrow. I think you guys got it in the bag. Hopefully next week we'll have some good news for everyone. All right, Ariel, well, cheers. Thanks for this sweet Pilsner. Thank you all
Awesome.
for tuning in and chatting by amps and by wiring with us. And just give us a call if you've got any questions on any of that stuff and you want to figure out a way to optimize your system anytime. We're happy to help.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.